guys, how are you all doing? If my voice sounds different, I'm not very well today. Get the violins out. But I want to do this episode because I had a follower reach out to me and ask me a really important, insightful question. And I'm going to actually read the question word for word. If you can hear noise in the background, it's my dog chewing the bone, by the way, so just FYI. So she said, let me see without giving away who her name is. I'd really like to hear how people retrain their way of thinking with regards to binge eating. I'm really good at being on plan all day, in quotes, and I make really good decisions until I sit down in the evening and then I just keep eating. Then I enter the self-loathing, punishing myself state of mind. I know I'm not alone, but wondering how people stop that cycle. I'd love to hear your thoughts and advice on that. So thank you for your question, by the way. You know who you are. It's a really good question, and I like the fact that you started off with talking about how you'd retrain your thoughts around binge eating, because it always starts with your mindset, and I know I talk a lot about that. But first of all, the question who this is from, you are not alone. There is so many of us out there that struggle with binge eating and emotional eating and self-hate and all of the binge restrict cycle, and we need help to get off it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about binge eating today, not emotional eating. That's separate, that's different. I'm going to talk about binge eating, what it is, like why we do it, and then what we can actually do about it to heal ourselves from binge eating. Okay, so from my point of view, there is 4 reasons why we binge eat. So number 1 is we're physically not getting enough food. So we're not getting enough calories, whether that would be on purpose, which 99% of the time it is if you're an avid dieter, or you're just not eating enough, period. That's number 1. Number 2 is you're avoiding certain foods. For example, you could be eating quote unquote enough calories for your body, but if you're avoiding chocolate or crisps or pizza or certain food groups like carbs or fats or whatever, if you're avoiding those foods, you're restricting. So I'll talk about what I mean exactly by restricting in a minute, but that's number 2 reason why we binge eat. Number 3 could be a biological need for a certain macronutrient. So your body physically needs something. So for example, if your diet consists mainly of, let's say proteins and carbohydrates, and you don't actually eat enough fats in your diet because for some reason or other, maybe you just don't like them, or maybe you're scared of eating fat, then your body needs macronutrients to survive no matter what diet you follow or not follow or whatever, however you eat. So for example, if I reframe this into probably a more realistic way of saying it, if you're constantly craving dairy, which for most of us that's our main, where our main dietary fat comes from, then you're probably not eating enough fats in your diet. So it could be like biochemical, physiology, can I ever say that word? A need for a macronutrient. And the biggest reason, number 4, the reason why we binge eat is because we emotionally deprive ourselves from a food or certain foods or your trigger foods or the foods that you can't have in the house because you'll eat them all in one go and you won't stop. So let me just break this down a little bit. So when we restrict ourselves physically and emotionally, which putting those 4 reasons down into 2, it's physical restriction no matter which way, or emotional restriction, we will at some point counteract that restriction in the opposite way and binge. And have you ever noticed that when you first started your first diet, however many years ago it would have been, you did really well, you could stick to it, you'd got this, and you'd lost weight, and you'd maybe kept your ideal body size for maybe weeks, months, or even years. Or maybe you could even keep up that certain way of eating for weeks, months, or years. But then why are you listening to this or watching this now is because it doesn't work long term. And the funny thing is, you get less and less good at dieting the longer you diet for. So like I said, going back to the first time you dieted, you probably nailed it and you'd like, yeah, this is going to be the answer to all my problems. And then for some reason, the 10th diet you do, or the 20th diet you do, or however many it is for you, you get to a breaking point where even if your life depended on it, you like physically cannot diet anymore. You just can't do it because you're just at a breaking point where you cannot diet anymore. And most likely before you got to that stage, you're in the binge diet cycle anyway, because you're restricting, you're binging, you're restricting, you're binging, and you just feel hopeless. Why can't I diet like I used to? Jane next door can diet, blah, 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 blah. Why can't I do it? And all the self-hate and everything comes in, right? So dieting doesn't work. We know that. It might work for a short term, a long term, but ultimately it doesn't work. I have been so many different body sizes in my life and yo-yoing up and down, up and down, up and down. And then when I think I've finally nailed it, and I'm, oh no, it's fine because I'm all into the gym now and muscle burns more fat than body fat does, and so I can eat like whatever. I always come back to the same body weight or more that I started with before the diet, because diets don't work. So if we're physically not eating enough and we're emotionally not allowing ourselves to have it, that's why we binge. So imagine you're holding a bow and arrow and you're about to shoot an arrow, right? You're pulling the bow back. I've not done bow and arrow shooting, but I've seen it. You pull the bow back, right? There's only so long you can pull that back for till you have to let go, and then it shoots the other way. And that's just the laws of cause and effect. Like, cause and effect is a universal law. You go one way, you have to go the other way. So the number one thing to do to stop binge eating, and again, it's only number one because there's a lot more to it, but the number one is to learn how to practice eating intuitively. And the reason I say practice and not learn how to, because what dieters tend to do is, let me just get this one thing straight to you guys, that dieting isn't what you eat, dieting is a state of mind. So dieting isn't what food you eat, it's how you think. So when you learn how to eat intuitively or practice intuitive eating, and those of you that don't know what intuitive eating means, in a nutshell, it means to tune in with your body. Am I hungry? If I'm hungry, okay, what do I want to eat? And then eat whatever you feel like eating, and then stop when you feel satisfied, which is a great way to make sure you're getting enough food and to learn how to listen to your body instead of following an external source like a diet plan or what Jane's eating next door or what you found on Instagram, okay? But what we like to do is like, this is what I did when I first started practicing intuitive eating, is I turned intuitive eating into a hunger and fullness diet because I was so desperate to have some control over my mindset, or I thought I can't be doing this intuitive eating thing right unless I've got some kind of control around it. So whenever I ate when I wasn't hungry or ate past fullness, I would think, shit, I've screwed up on the intuitive eating diet because I'd made it into a diet myself with my mindset. Then I'd start intuitive eating again tomorrow. So then still technically I'm putting intuitive eating into a diet because it all comes down to diet mentality. So I hope this is making sense. So the first step to stop binge eating is to learn how to practice eating intuitively, and that can take a while, especially if you've ignored your body's hunger and fullness signals for so long. And let me just point this out: we were born natural intuitive eaters. We're human animals. Okay, so yes, we're humans, but we're animals. If you want to think of calories, our hunger and our drive to eat is our body's natural built-in calorie counting system, if you like. Because if we listen to our bodies and eat when we want and stop when we're done, then that it's all fine. But it's not as easy as that when you've been dieting for so long. You've been brainwashed with diet culture, so it takes a while to get out of it. So that's step number one. And step number two, which I see it with my clients, and I did this, and it's so obvious and completely normal. A lot of people stop physically dieting, so they stop following a diet plan, they stop depriving themselves, they're eating the cake, they're eating the chocolate, and then they're saying to me, I've stopped physically dieting, but I'm still eating Nutella out of a jar, which is exactly what I used to do. And then if you're doing that, it's because you're emotionally depriving yourself. So basically that means you're judging the shit out of yourself. So you may be sat eating Nutella or chocolate and thinking, well, I'm physically allowing myself to have it, but it's still bad food. Maybe I shouldn't have this. Instead, even though I'm eating it, maybe I should be having something else, like quote unquote healthier instead. Or in the back of your mind, you're thinking, maybe I'm not going to try and do this anymore because I see it as bad. I'm going to try to not do this tomorrow. So you're basically just dieting in your mind without physically dieting, if that makes sense. This is a biggie. A lot of binges for me used to happen when my brain thought there was going to be a restriction in the future or the very next day. And I'm sure it's the same for you too. I best eat these 4 boxes of biscuits and 10 packets of crisps and 2 litres of ice cream tonight now, because tomorrow I'm not having any. And so it's a natural biological instinct. It's how we're wired to eat. And I know the 21st century we're in now, is it still called the 21st century, by the way, because it's now 2020? I don't know. Happy New Year, guys, by the way. But in this world we live in now, I get there's never going to be an actual famine, but back in the day, we're driven to eat. If we think that we're not going to get food for a certain amount of time, we're driven to overeat. That's our natural instinct. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're not weak or helpless. It's natural and it's a normal reaction to restriction, or even just thinking about restriction. If you're not physically dieting, yet you're still restricting with your mindset, you're still going to be binging, because your brain is so powerful, your mind, the way you think, it has an effect on your body, which then if you're thinking, oh, tomorrow I'm going to try to not eat Nutella out of the jar, your body and your mind then is expecting restriction, and so then you're more likely to binge. And because you never ever not have the thing the next day or the next week or the next month, because that's why you listen to this video, and 98% of people that go on diets or restrict, it doesn't work long term. 98% of the world's population, guys, by the way. Even though tomorrow is going to be different, because it's a new year, it's going to be different this time. I've got it all sorted out. I'm not going to diet. I'm just going to do healthy behaviors. Like, whatever you want to dress dieting up as, any form of restriction, emotionally or physically, will cause you to binge. So you need to, number one, learn how to practice intuitive eating so you're physically getting enough. Number two, work on your dieting mentality mindset, which is where working with a coach or getting professional help will help you massively, because a lot of the times you can't see this dieting mentality that's coming up. You need someone to point it out to you and work through it with you. Until you get that sorted, you're going to keep binge eating. But honest to God, when you get that sorted, like, food is just food. And like, you know, like quote unquote normal eaters, whatever normal eaters are, like the difference between normal eaters and us, well, I would like to class myself as a normal eater now, is normal eaters don't really give a shit what they eat or what they don't eat. They're not emotionally attached to food. Whereas at the moment, your self-worth and your self-esteem is attached to what you have eaten or what you haven't eaten that day. So whether you're on the wagon or off the wagon, you've been good or bad, or the chocolate, even though, okay, I'm going to eat intuitively, so I'm allowed to have all the food, but still chocolate's bad and the salad is good. No, that's diet mentality. So you need to work on your diet mentality. And the bottom line is the deep root cause of why you want to diet and restrict in the first place before the binges even start happening is because you want to change your physical body. You want to manipulate your body size, okay? So whatever reason that will be for you, a lot of the time it comes back to self-worth. You think you're going to be worthy if you're smaller. Society puts pressure on us for an ideal body size. There's a lot of reasons around the bottom line of you don't feel good enough unless you're a certain size, shape, weight, whatever, which I work with my clients a lot on body image and body confidence work, because that's the root cause of dieting and then binging. So we need to get to the root cause of it, which if you woke up tomorrow and you were completely happy in your body, whatever that means to you, but if you just woke up tomorrow and you felt like, do you know what, I'm happy with the skin I'm in, I'm just happy with my body, would you binge eat then? And that's a really powerful question to ask. I mean, it's difficult to answer because you don't know that. But if you didn't really give a shit and you were just happy in your body, would you try and manipulate the food the way you do and then end up binging? No, you would probably just eat what you wanted when you wanted and enjoy the shit out of it. And then that's it. Move on with your life and just do other stuff with life apart from thinking about food like 24/7, or when you're next going to restrict, or when you're next going to binge. And it takes up so much headspace in your head, dieting and a binge cycle does, which I'm sure you know, which is why you're listening or watching to this. So I want you to know that there is a way out. There really is a way out. There's just a process you've got to follow in the specific orders to get there, but you can do it. So if you need any extra help, please reach out to me. There is some book recommendations I can recommend that you guys read. It's what the first one to learn how to practice intuitive eating is Love What You Eat, Eat What You Love by Michelle May. I'm sure that's that's her name. And then the second book to read is Health at Any Size by Linda Bacon. And if you need help, reach out to me. If you've got any questions, let me know. And you can have, be and do anything you want. You just got to go out and get it. And I love you all.